Present.
Adam Varley.
Here.
Scott Leclerc.
Here.
Ed Weber here. Sean McGinnis. Thomas Lopez. Steve DeCrane.
Present.
Dan Kelly.
Here.
David Robbins. Jerry Pucci.
Here.
Sine Mistry. McGain Gokas.
And we have all regular members participating in voting this evening. Next up, we have the approval of the minutes for the March 9th, 2017 meeting. Does anyone have any comments, questions on the minutes before we take a motion?
One, Mr. Chair. Page 25. First paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth line down, where it said crossing, it says they're crossing the river. It should be crossing the railroad at grade.
Okay, so we'll have that change noted. Any other comments? Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the March 9th minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Rapucci to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Kelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Leclerc? Motion passes. Communications. Good evening, Roger.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of Planning Board. If you turn to your packet, I'll quickly go through the items you received after the agenda was mailed out. The first item is an amended Planning Board agenda. We've included other business item number 2, which is an amendment to the fiscal year 2018 capital improvements program, adding 2 new projects. You have a communication pertaining to case number 1, which is postponed to May 4th, just a copy of a communication that the board requested the applicant supply to continue the public hearing, not the public hearing, the decision until the May 5th meeting, or May 4th meeting. Second item is case number 2. It's a communication from Gene Walker, Deputy Manager of Engineering, on 36 and 38 Broad Street, Dunkin' Donuts. You have a communication again from Gene Walker on case number 3, 124 Spitbrook Road Fire Station, with no further comments. You have a copy of a preliminary planning board agenda to determine regional impact. You have a copy of the proposed changes to the FY 2018 capital improvements projects and a letter from the chair of the capital improvements committee, Dan Kelly, pertaining those 2 projects. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Report of committee and liaison. Mr. Kelly, Mr. Weber, anything to report?
The only thing,
Go ahead.
you have nothing? You have something, you go first, you always.
Okay. I do want to draw your attention to the draft letter for the CIC meeting that we held 2 nights ago. Has to do with Spitbrook Road widening and also the signage pattern. We approved them. We've made them A4, short term. The committee also agreed that the wayfinding sign package need to be revised, and so I put in as an estimate what they bid, because there's more signage required to get people out of town. Their focus was getting people into town. Once here, it's useless unless you can get them back out again. It'll be formalized by the next meeting.
Yeah, and we can certainly, if folks have more detailed questions about those, we can pick those up during the discussion item period. Mr. Weber?
The Historical District Commission had an informal meeting. We had no applicants, and we discussed the 2 streets and to be brought into the, just informal talk. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, I will now read the procedure of this evening's meeting. After the legal notice of each conditional special use permit, site plan, or subdivision plan is read by the chair, the board will determine if the application is complete and ready for the board to take jurisdiction. The public hearing will begin, at which time the applicant or representative will be given time to present an overview and description of their project. They shall speak to whether or not they agree with the recommended staff stipulations. The board will then have an opportunity to ask relevant follow-up questions of the applicant or staff. The chair will then ask for testimony from the audience. First, anyone wishing to speak in opposition or concern to the plan may speak. Please come forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. This will be the time to express your concerns or ask questions you may have regarding the plan. Next, testimony will come from anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan. The applicant will then be given a rebuttal period, at which time they should respond to any concerns raised by prior public testimony. One public member will then be allowed to respond to only those items brought forth during the applicant's rebuttal period. After this has been completed, the public hearing will end and the board will resume the public meeting, at which time the board will deliberate and vote on the application before us. We ask that both sides keep the remarks to the subject at hand and not repeat what has already been said. We want to be fair to everyone and make the best possible decision based on the testimony presented and considering all applicable approval criteria established in the Nashua revised ordinances. Thank you for your interest and courteous attention. I ask you to turn off your cell phones, please, at this time. Old business conditional special use permits, none. Old business subdivision plans, none. Old business site plans, case number 1 is postponed to the May 4th, 2017 meeting. New business conditional special use permits, none. New business subdivision plans, none. New business site plans, case number 2, Pagodo LLC owner, application and acceptance of proposed request for a 1-year extension of the site plan approval to demolish an existing restaurant and build a new drive-through restaurant in its place. Property is located at 36 and 38 Broad Street, sheet 61, lots 60 and 172, zoned general industrial, and this is located in Ward 4. Thank you. As to new business case number 2, can I have a motion that this application is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Kelly, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peterson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. My name is Chris Rice. I'm with TF Moran. I'm here tonight on behalf of Pagodo LLC. We're requesting a 1-year extension for the site plan that was previously approved. There's no changes to the site plan. We've just been working through some of the conditions with staff and some items with Dunkin' Donuts Corporate. They are just about ready to start construction. In your packet, I just included for your use a color-up of the prior plan. I have been working with staff on a slight revision to the elevation, which is sheet 2 of that package. The bubbled area is the area that changed. Linda did not feel that it was a substantial change in any way, but I mentioned that I would just bring it before the board tonight for informational purposes. And then lastly, we did receive a copy of the letter from the planning department from John O'Donnell relative to some trash and undesirable activity taking place on the site. I forwarded that to my client. It's my understanding that trash has already been removed as of this morning. And they'd like to suggest that they put up the construction fence early. That should give indication to people that things are getting underway and it might keep some of that activity from going on to the site. The demo work has already been put out to bid and they intend to start that work pretty soon. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank
Sorry.
you. Questions for the applicant?
No.
Nope.
Looks like we're all set.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern to this plan? Please just state your name and address for the record.
I'm Mary Beth Bristivo, 51 Gill Street. Hi, Scott. I have a question and a concern.
Okay.
Question is the existing Dunkin' Donuts that's at the gas station, is that going to remain open, or will that close when this opens up?
My understanding, and based on the original presentation, that we had when we approved this plan is that the other Dunkin' Donuts would remain open.
Okay. The other question, I don't know if it's already been addressed, traffic? People going into that and then wanting to take a left out to go west on Broad Street?
Right, so I just want to place this into context. So we actually, the planning board already approved this plan. So what's being asked of us tonight is simply to extend for 1 year. So when we issue an approval of a plan, the applicant has 1 year to commence, meaningful activities in terms of, beginning the site plan, construction, et cetera. So the applicant is simply asking that we provide them with a further extension, a 1 year extension to commence construction. So they're not making changes to the plan. At the time they originally presented the application, we had fairly detailed discussions about, traffic and other factors.
Okay. I missed that meeting, so I apologize.
Okay. So I wanted to clarify, because we're not considering the substance of the plan tonight, because we already had that detailed, public hearing and already approved the plan. So the applicant is not asking for any changes to the plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
I could just add something to clarify.
Okay, hold on just a moment. Just let me just make sure there's, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan? Yeah.
Thank you. Just a clarification. Yes, the intent is for to the best of my knowledge, the existing Dunkin' Donuts is staying open. And relative to the traffic, there was a full traffic study provided, and what that color up doesn't represent, because I think this item came up during the planning board hearing for the original approval. We are putting in a turn lane off of Broad Street into the site. So that is going to be reflected on the final plans to be signed. So that should assist with traffic entering into the site from Broad Street. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have two things.
Mr. Peterson?
I think the woman speaking out of concern was concerned about people exiting and making a left turn coming out of that proposed Dunkin' Donuts. And my other thing I'd like to mention is on the new drawing, it's dated January 7th, 2016. Maybe that should be 2017.
Yes, again, this color, I just was giving it to you because it was the only colored plan I had that showed the site layout. So I can update, my final plans will have the correct date of the submittal.
Okay.
As to traffic exiting the site, I'm going back a year from the prior traffic study, but I believe when we went through it with the traffic department, because of the new signal that was installed just before the site, there's enough break time for people to make a left. The intent of the turn lane was to not stop traffic coming up behind us as people are waiting to turn into the site from backing up along the street. So that's my recollection of the traffic discussion at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Staff have anything to add?
No, staff has nothing to add.
This concludes the hearing on this application. We now take our deliberations into the public meeting. The board does reserve the right to recall any party for further clarification. Any questions, concerns? Take a motion?
No, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to comment. You stated when someone from the public asked the question that we wouldn't consider the substance of the case because it's just an extension. Whereas we routinely grant extensions, especially if it's just a one-year extension, I think we are required to consider any questions asked because things may have changed, conditions in the street, on the site, new members and so on. So I think more accurately stated it would be we don't need to look into material in detail.
Right, I think that's what I was trying to convey, is that we looked at this thoroughly, you know, at the time, and that the purpose of the application this evening is not to rehear the
Right.
substance
I
of the
understand.
application.
I didn't want concerned citizens walking away thinking that whatever the concerns were, didn't matter. That's my
No,
hope.
no, understood. But I think, as I said, I also don't want to convey that, you know, when we're looking at a plan that we had already approved and gone through substantively, that we would, you know, reopen those issues at the time when the request is procedural rather than substantive. But thank you for highlighting that clarification. Any other questions or comments before we take a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Claire?
I'd like to make a motion in new business number 2, site plan, owner Pagoda LLC, location at 36 and 38 Broad Street. Make the motion that we approve the one-year extension, and the plan does meet the requirements outlined in site plan NRO, section 190-146D, with the one staff stipulation relating to the prior conditions of approval being reincorporated.
Motion by Mr. Leclerc is to approve new business number 2, site plan, finding that it does meet the requirements outlined in site plan NRO section 190-146D, with the one stipulation is written in the staff report. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Aguchi. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. New business site plan, case number 3. City of Nashua owner, application and acceptance of proposed site plan amendments to depict a 2-story, 3,052 square foot building addition for Spitbrook Road Fire Station. Property is located at 124 Spitbrook Road, Sheet B, Lot 1999, zoned Park Industrial. And this item is located in Ward 9. As to case number 3, can I have a motion this application is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Kelly, is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Aguchi. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Steve Auger. I'm a project manager with Hayner Swanson, and our office is located at 3 Congress Street here in Nashua. Joining me in the audience tonight is Mr. Kelly Davis, the architect for the project from Port One Architects. And also joining me is Chief Stephen Gallipo and Assistant Chief Brian Rhodes from Nashua Fire Rescue. We've come before you this evening seeking approval for a 2-story, 3,052 square foot building addition and associated site improvements. Quickly, some information about the site. The existing fire station has an address of 124 Spitbrook Road. It is lot 1999 on map B. It's zoned PI Park Industrial. It's currently abutted on both sides by a church and existing self-storage facility, and across Spitbrook Road there are some residential apartments and a portion of a city-owned tract. Some features about the building addition. It's 2 stories. The first floor will be an apparatus bay, and the second floor will be a combination of some additional bedroom space, a fitness facility, and a library. We are widening the driveway on the property to access the new apparatus bay. However, though, we are tapering that driveway back once we get to Spitbrook Road, so there's no increase in the size of the curb cut going on to Spitbrook. Stormwater, as you can see on the plan on the left there, we we have a proposed riprap swale that's coming off the new driveway, and that will head downhill to basically a pit filled of leaching stone. And based on the requirements of the Nashua Land Use Code stormwater regulations, we are meeting all our requirements with regards to the additional building structure and the additional pavement out there. We are asking for 2 waiver requests this evening. I'll quickly summarize them. The first one is from section 190-198A249 of the Land Use Code, and that is to allow a total of 13 parking spaces, including 1 handicap, where 48 spaces are required. Simply put, when we calculate the spaces based on the current Land Use Code requirement for a fire station, there's a requirement for 48 spaces. There are 13 proposed, and that will be adequate for maintaining the site, as this apparatus, the intent isn't to increase the size of the staff. So the amount of staff that works there now will continue to work there. And as the chiefs explained to me, the way they man the firehouse now is a staff of 8 people works in a 24-hour shift. So every 24 hours, 8 people leave, 8 people come in. So with the 13 spaces we have now, that will continue to be sufficient for what the existing building needs. The second waiver we're requesting is from section 190-279BB and 190-279EE. This waiver regards showing on the plan the specific existing conditions on and adjacent to the site, including topography. Basically, we surveyed the portion of the site that we needed to, and that is going to contain the design. We aren't showing the existing conditions on the abutting properties or the properties across the street, nor are we showing the topography. Simply put, that information just isn't necessary and would just place a financial burden on the city in order to do this plan. In summary, we feel that the above requests are reasonable and meet the criteria outlined in section 190-148, waiver of site plan standards of the Nashua Land Use Code. We also feel that the above request meets the spirit and intent of the Land Use Code, and that a strict enforcement of the above sections would impose a hardship on our applicant. Lastly, as Roger mentioned in communications, we did receive a letter from Gene Walker, and that references stipulation of approval number 3 on the staff report. So we would ask that if you so move to approve the plan, that you would strike that stipulation from the requirements. If you have any questions at this time, I'll be glad to answer them.
Just, you mentioned the parking waiver. I'm assuming you're not losing any spots
Nope,
as a result.
nope, there's currently 13. There will be 13 after construction's complete.
Questions from Mr. Auger?
Question. Steve, that 48, how is that calculated? Required number of spaces?
Actually, can I approach the board? It's just easier to read. In the land use code, there is a under all the different uses for parking, there is one for where a facility like fire station or police station falls under, and that comes out to that requirement is 1 space per 200 square feet of building. So including the addition on this, we have 9,648 or 9,640 square feet, and that calculates out to 48 spaces. So the land use code lets us use the qualification of fire department as opposed to breaking out the square footage of every single room in the building, you know, where there would be X amount of office, you know, versus X amount of bedroom or whatnot. So that's how it's calculated.
And I'm gonna guess with only 13 provided and 8 required on a regular basis. Leaves 5 for visitors. Is that the idea?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so in the event that they were hosting any kind of activities and so on, they probably wouldn't have enough spaces.
So something like that, I'd let one of the chiefs answer. I'm not sure what types of, activities other than, official business that they have at the station.
Question for you. Let me get back. I want to talk about that drainage swale. The existing one, you see out there, it's a short distance riprap. That was designed by the engineering department. And when they were doing that some years ago, they were concerned about, winter conditions. You plow, there's a snowbank, and then you have melting snow, and you have rain, and you may have icing. So we haven't visited the site to see how that's worked out. But essentially, you're doing that.
Well, we're, based on the redevelopment section of the land use code, all we have to account for is the additional pavement and the additional building, so.
Right, I
So-
get that. But essentially, you're doing the same design.
Yep,
So you have a low point in the pavement.
yep.
And should you have winter conditions, snowbanks and so on, once again, you'll be trapping runoff or melted snow. And wouldn't it have been better to put a catch basin or let a pipe down to your little detention basin?
Well, originally, we were thinking of some type of leaching apparatus in the area where we have the stone pit and, trying to pipe it there. There were some test borings done in that area, and when you hit certain depths, we encountered ledge. So there were a few of them that hit ledge, there were a few of them that were clean. So basically, we did our design thinking, well, we might not be able to get a standard, regulation leaching catch basin, all the way in the ground. So we did our design conservatively and kind of made it wider as opposed to deeper in working in the amount of soil where we aren't hitting ledge, and just felt it was better to, instead of trying to have some type of, half of an apparatus, we would just use leaching stone and handle it that way.
So
it's
you don't think that water is gonna get trapped on the pavement there, and you have 3-4 feet of frozen snow? Yeah, I mean, it'll take some maintenance during winter to get the runoff into your swale. I mean, that's a pretty common thing. You see it on the roadsides all the time. That's why when the plow trucks go by, they try to clear the catch basin so that anything melting or rain coming will get to the catch basin, so you don't end up with a flooded situation. I think that's a maintenance issue. I don't know if the fire department wants to deal with that. If you couldn't get a full depth catch basin because of, rock conditions or what have you, maybe some kind of a shallow structure to capture that runoff that I'm talking about. And this doesn't have to discharge all the way down, it just has to discharge at the point where, by gravity, it daylights. Are you following my?
I understand what you're saying, Steve. I mean, but this was the idea that we felt best served the purpose, given the current conditions out there. I mean, we didn't want to get into having to, blast out X amount of land just to, just to get a pipe in there and get a structure in there. So, I mean, this is what we proposed, and, Jean agreed with us. She had no problems with it.
I understand, but I think you should make it clear to the fire department that they may end up with something that's going to require maintenance throughout the winter, as long as they're prepared to take that on. Okay?
Mr. Weber?
Went out there the other day, actually, yesterday, and I had no problems walking the whole place and nothing muddy, so it's nice and dry. And the parking was fine, plenty of parking spaces for you. But when I was there, I noticed at the end of the parking spaces now, over by the shed, not all the way to the shed, but what, is that the leaching area there? Behind where the parking is, going towards that shed, is that kind of a soft ground? Is that the leaching field currently, or what is that area right now?
I'm gonna have to come to the board. I'm not sure what area you're talking about. Well, on the plan, this is labeled as an existing garden right now.
Okay, so this is not leaching then?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, why I'm saying it is, it looks like if you needed to, you could put 2 extra, you could extend your parking there if you needed to.
I mean, that's something if the fire department deemed it necessary because
Right.
of whatever requirements,
Right.
that would be something we could look into.
What's that, Mr. Weber? Other questions? Nope. Did you just want to have the chief come up and just address Steve's question about
Yeah, certainly.
the events?
Chief Gallipo. To the question on the additional parking for functions, we generally don't have functions at the Spitbrook Road Firehouse. All of our major training sessions and our larger functions are done at 177 Lake Street. That was built for that purpose, specifically to be more of our training facility and stuff like that. Occasionally, if there's a retirement party, you might have a couple of extra fire apparatus coming through just to say bye to a guy. Potentially, there's plenty of room. Today, there's plenty of room just to park 2 more trucks in front of the existing bays. They're there for a short time and they leave. But there's no real functions held at that firehouse.
Chief, you might remember I personally designed that parking area some years ago.
Yep.
So I think we maximized that space that Mr. Weber is talking about. And I don't think you can get any more parking down there if you wanted. So,
I think we've used every bit of space we have. And as you remember, we moved the fuel tank, it used to be the in-the-ground tank. We moved it over to the other side, so that kind of
right.
hog ties us over there. But as was already mentioned, there's 8 people per shift. We have no intentions at this point in adding any additional staff down there. So there's 8 cars there now. There'll be 8 cars there when the project's done.
I don't know if you caught the point I was making to Mr. Auger earlier about the drainage. I also designed that riprap swale that exists, and what we were concerned about water puddling there during winter time and icing up. So you guys must plow the snow so the water can go and then ice. But essentially, you're kind of recreating that. So I was hoping that something more permanent, like a small catch basin to pipe it down. But Mr. Auger says there might be soil conditions to deal with. So as long as
He being our expert in this field, I would, again, defer back to his best judgment. When we did the borings, they got the test results, and that was the idea we came up with.
hope it works out. All right.
Thank you. Anything else I can help you with?
I think we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern to this plan? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the plan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Parker, representing Grace Lutheran Church, 130 Spitbrook. After hearing the proposal, looking at the plan, we would have no objections to any addition to our wonderful neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of the plan? Does the applicant have anything to add? Staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. You have one condition, number 4, it says any work within the right-of-way shall require a financial guarantee. Typically, we don't require other city departments to post financial guarantees. I'm sure Mr. Dukin will concur with that.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up, Roger, because I did discuss that with Engineer Walker. We would keep that condition on, not because we want the fire department to post a guarantee, but any work within the right-of-way would require a guarantee. And in this case, it will be by the contractor performing the work. So it is a good reminder to the applicant, the fire department, that the contracts that they put out, they should make sure they have a guarantee from the contractor in place. So the stipulation should should hold.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question in regard to that? Is it necessary to modify that, to specify that the financial guarantee comes from the construction company and not from the fire department itself, or is that irrelevant?
I mean, I guess I would defer to you, Steve. I mean, do you think we need the clarification, or is that just apparent to everybody involved?
I think the intent is being served by the current wording. So, and I believe it's standard language now from the plan department, so if you try to remember every time to change it, they may not. You'll see in the next case that we have similar wording. So I think as long as we get what we want, which means the city gets a bond on all the work, whether it's by a private applicant or by a contractor serving a public applicant, I think the language is fine.
Any other questions for the applicant or anyone else before we close?
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear that typically we have them post a bond before we issue approvals, a typical time, and this would be a different situation. So I think it might be appropriate to say a financial guarantee, or that they hire a contractor that has bonding approval from public works for that nature. I just don't want us to get involved in saying, well, you have to post a bond because it says so in the condition.
Well, I think it's up to your staff, Roger. Those are your words. If you want to modify them to accordingly, that's fine.
It would be good to clarify that the agency hire a contractor that has, how do you refer to it, Steve, as a floating bond, or? The bonded contractor for work over a certain amount.
Could we just say any work within the right-of-way which to require a financial guarantee from any third party performing the work?
That's good.
Okay, this concludes the hearing on this application. We will now take our deliberations into the public meeting. The board does reserve the right to recall any party for further clarification. Okay, so I think we can, just the housekeeping matters, we can delete stipulation number 3, given the updated letter we received from Gene Walker, and then per Roger's suggestion, we just add that language at the end of stipulation, current stipulation number 4. Any other questions, concerns, points of discussion? Bill Tucci?
So for the city of Nashua, site plan, the proposal is a site plan to construct a 2-story building addition to the fire station at 124 Spitbrook Road. The planning board makes a determination that the plan meets the requirements outlined in site plan NRO 190-146D. The board reviewed the requirements prior to the motion. The request for the waiver of NRO 190-198A 249, which establishes minimum parking standards, is granted, finding that the waiver will not be contrary to the spirit of the regulation. And number 2, the request for the waiver of 190-279BB and EE, which requires an existing condition plan, is granted, finding that the waiver will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulation. Item 3 has been satisfied by a letter from the engineering department. Item 4 will be modified to say any work within the right-of-way shall require a bond from third-party company performing the work. Is that satisfying?
Sure, we just say bond or financial guarantee.
Or financial guarantee to be held by the third-party that's actually doing the work. Prior to the chair signing the plan, minor drafting corrections will be made. Prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, all site improvements will be completed. That's my motion.
Motion by Mr. Rapucci to approve new business number 3, finding that it does meet requirements outlined in site plan arrow, section 190-146D, with a total of 5 stipulations. The first 2 being waiver requests, both reading is granted, will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulation. The original stipulation number 3 being removed, 4, 5, and 6 renumbered, and new number 3 being reworded as noted by Mr. Rapucci, and then the remaining 2 stipulations as written in the staff report. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Kelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. New business site plan, case number 4, City of Nashua owner, application acceptance of proposed amendment to NR 283 for the partial demolition of an existing 368,000 plus square foot industrial warehouse and to construct a park and ride facility. Property is located at 25 Crown Street, sheet 23 and 25, lot 1, zone general industrial and urban residence, and this is located in Ward 7. As to new business number 4, can I have a motion that this application is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction?
Move that.
Motion by Mr. Rapucci, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Leclerc. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Good evening. My name is Brian Colburn. I work for McFarland Johnson. We're a civil engineering firm that's been hired by the city to design this project. A few years ago, the city and the Department of Transportation had a study done to identify parcels that would be amenable to a rail platform should passenger rail service come up this railroad corridor. These 2 parcels were identified and selected as the preferred location in Nashua for the rail platform. And the city used some federal funds to purchase the property. Since that time, obviously some of the impetus to bring passenger rail has fizzled out. The project was still active, and the federal government and State Department of Transportation push the city to complete the project, or else funds used to purchase the parcel would have to be returned. So city looked at it and decided to pursue the project more as a park and ride for now, but it is designed and set up such that if rail platform, or rail service ever does come up this corridor, a rail platform could be added fairly easily. Stay right away. So we were brought on by the city about this time, or maybe a little bit later, about a year ago. Since that time, we've had a couple of public hearings to get input from abutters and citizens about what the parking lot should look like, potential uses for the remainder of the land. There was a fair bit of discussion about potential use for the large warehouse building. Sorry, just to back up a little bit, there are currently 2 buildings on this site. There's a small building pretty much fronting Crown Street that's currently being used by Make It Labs, which is a kind of rent-your-own space style engineering outfit where people can rent time with 3D printers, or they have an auto shop there, so that there's a lot of different uses. That building and use is going to stay as part of this project. There's a large warehouse building towards the rear of the site. It's currently vacant. Previously, it was a storage building or manufacturing building for a cabinet making factory. So as we got into this project, there was a fair bit of discussion about what we could do with that building. What were some additional uses? We went through, did a structural analysis, also reviewed what it would take to bring it up to any sort of modern building code, life safety code, and found that it financially didn't make sense for the city to invest any money in the space. Currently has an issue with vandalism occurring now. So the decision was made to demolish it as part of this project. That allowed us to build our parking lot, which needs to be 250 spaces to meet the purpose of the federal goals for this. Allowed us to really compact the lot towards the front of the site and convert the remainder part of the site, which would be to the southeast, to just green space for now. By compacting the parking lot, again, that maximizes the green space and also maximizes the opportunity for the city to do something else with it in the future, should the rail platform come or some other use decide that that area is good for something. But for now, this project is just being converted to green space. We do, as part of making the lot as compact as we could, we did eliminate some of the raised islands in the lot, which is why the waiver is being requested. And again, that's just to, while we didn't have some green space within the interior lot, we did maximize the green space on the lot. And just with the shape of the parcels, as we extend the lot to the southeast, it was getting fairly inefficient to provide more spaces in that direction. And we're just resulting in a lot more impervious area that isn't really beneficial to the city. So just to sum up some of the meetings we had a public informational meeting last July 20th. After that meeting, we developed a few alternatives for what the lot would look like, presented those to the public on August 16th, 2016. They chose this. This is the preferred layout of the parking lot. And subsequent to that meeting, presented to the Board of Aldermen Infrastructure Committee in August, which approved the project, and then we went into final design. This project is currently scheduled, if it ever stops snowing, to begin construction hopefully mid to late May. And I can answer any questions the board may have.
Questions? Mr. Weber?
Recently, I attended Nashua Regional Planning Board Commission, and they did they had a person come up and talk about exactly this. During our discussion time later, it would be a good thing if you watched it. It deals with exactly what you're talking about here, but I didn't want to do it during this time. It's a 25-minute thing that we're going to be doing afterwards for the board to see. And it deals with parking opposed and bicyclists and walk to type of thing that is what's happening in other cities and towns across the United States. So that'll be later. But one of the things that it would be good would to have bicycle stuff proposed in the future. Not right now because it's not happening. But that's one of the things that really does need to be happening. We do have more and more people that are coming to Nashua that aren't using cars. They're just, Franklin Street is not going to have are going to have more people that are not going to have cars. One of our things we just approved, additional stuff stuff. So it's one of those things that's coming about, and so.
Mr. Weber, are you talking about bicycle use in connection with the rail?
Bicycle with the parking, compared to all the parking spaces. Parking spaces are not working in other parts of Massachusetts right now. They have big parking garages, and they're not even half full. And so parking doesn't, cars going to it don't work as effective as people are being dropped off, or they're cycling or walking to these things, rail.
I can just follow up on that
Sure.
briefly.
No, in the future.
So the study that was initiated with the rail platform was the study that really came up with the 250 spaces. And fortunately, once that gets written into the federal purpose of a project, it's difficult to back away from that.
Right. No, I'm just saying, we need to look at it too,
Sure.
okay, for the future. The city of Nashua.
Yeah, is there any study on the need for the use that it's going to be used for when it's done, the park and ride?
The park and ride, no. The park and rides that exist in the city, my understanding is they're fairly full. This is somewhat out of the way from those.
But I mean, a park and ride needs an agreement with a service provider that shuttles people somewhere, right? Do we have anything? I mean, are we building the bridge to nowhere? Are we building this parking lot and then saying, okay, let's try to go get somebody to drive people somewhere?
Sure. I don't know that we're building the bridge to nowhere. Where this is being built mainly for a future rail platform and to fulfill the purpose of a project that the city has already accepted federal money for. So to not complete the project would mean that the city would have to pay back the money that they used to purchase the land.
So the people who make these decisions looked at this and said, it's more feasible to do it this way than to just sell the land that we're not going to use and give back the money.
Correct.
This is the best way for the city to get out of the predicament of having bought this, expecting to build a rail service here, which isn't coming in the foreseeable future. And I'm not trying to, I just want to understand, because it seems like it's something that doesn't really have a purpose, but that's a valid purpose if the city's decided that's the best way to protect its financial investment.
Yes, I mean, that's one reason. I think there are other benefits to the project. For instance, the site is remote now, especially with the large warehouse building, so that issue that the city has now will be taken care of as part of the project, demolishing the building, bringing some activity to the site, maybe site lighting to make it more secure. So while some of the reason to do this is, yes, not to pay back the money, the city's looked for ways and engage the abutters to say, all right, we have to build a 250 space parking lot here. What's the best way to do it that the community can also benefit from?
I understand. Thank you.
And I believe you said, correct me if I'm wrong, some of that, where the existing space for the buildings and the rest of the site that's not being utilized for parking, I think you indicated, at least at this time, that would just be made into green space?
Correct.
Yeah. Other questions?
I just have to ask this, because it's just,
Sure.
I'm thinking about it. So the federal government doesn't care that they gave us money to build a rail station that's not going to be a rail station. As long as we put 250 parking spaces there that aren't going to be used, that's kind of the way. They don't care about the rail station not being there. They care about the parking spaces not being there.
The federal government cares about you finishing your project. So this project was initiated as a 250 space parking
Right,
lot.
but I'm just saying, the project that the federal government said we're going to give you the money for was a rail station. But we're not building a rail station. So it's clear, everybody in the city is clear that they're gonna satisfy this requirement by paving this thing, and it's not, the federal government isn't gonna turn around and say, hey, we gave you this money to build a rail station, and there's no rail station here. You see what I'm saying?
This
Could I
project will
comment?
satisfy the federal requirement.
Okay.
You're gonna have to have parking places when the rail station comes. So consider it to be phase one of a two-phase program. So you have the parking. What you haven't done is put in the rail station, and that will come later. It's a plan that will address the people that come to the rail station, and there will be rail here at some point from the north. And now we have to look for one in the south. That particular parcel became available and was a good selection for servicing the people in that general area and the people from the north, Litchfield, so.
No, I understand that, Dan, I do. I'm just saying, if the grant was given to us to build a rail station, we're not building that.
No, we're building a rail station. Phase one is gonna be the parking first.
And the
then-
testimony by this gentleman was that satisfies the requirement. And that was really all I was
Well,
asking.
it's gonna be a rail station, just not in the timeframe you'd like, or me.
I have no interest in whether or not we build a rail station or not. It's my question is, if the federal government is giving us money to build a rail station, and we're not building a rail station, are we satisfying the requirement? The testimony is we are. That's all I was asking. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I see Director Marchand. I'm sure this is not the first time she's addressed this issue. I think she's willing to come up and talk all about the federal grant and so on.
Good evening, Sarah Marchant, Director of Community Development. So the federal grant was to purchase the property and build the 250 spaces. It was for a future rail station. So that is, your answer was satisfied by Brian, but it isn't actually to build the rail station. It was to purchase a property that could allow for the rail station. And one of the unique characteristics of that is a 900-foot-long platform. And this is one of the very few properties in the city that has that length of frontage along a rail corridor that allows for the future rail station 900-foot-long platform. So that was also another reason why we wanted to condense parking, so that we could make sure we could maximize future economic development potential of this site in accordance with the platform in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a question to the Director. Now that you're building this and the passenger rail station is years away, possibly, can you utilize this space to get revenue?
No, excellent question. So because the facility is being paid for by federal dollars, and just to be clear, this was an 80% federally funded project, but the previous administration also negotiated, instead of the city paying the 20% match, that we would get toll credits to pay the 20% match. So there's no Nashua tax dollars going into this project. But because it is a federal project, we cannot charge for people to park there. Just like at the Exit 8 Park and Ride or at our Exit 5 Park and Ride, we don't charge people to park there. That's part of the conditions of it. So what I will say is that our current tenants of the building at the front, Make It Labs, have been remarkably wonderful, and that they have an amazing presence there and have a growing footprint. And they will use some of this parking. And they certainly have been I think from what we heard from the neighbors who showed up at the neighborhood meetings, which we held there on site, they've been a great neighborhood partner in keeping eyes on the site, keeping track of some of the kids on the site, helping to fix bicycles. So I think that having them there, and they will be using these spaces, they have events every Thursday, is a good thing. Anything else?
Thank you. Any other questions for the engineer?
Yep.
Mr. Peterson?
Getting back to what Mr. Weber was saying about bicycle racks at the parking lot, I noticed in the recent letter, March 17th, from McFarland Johnson, signed by Mr. Colburn, it refers to the narrative that's attached to it. In it, it says there will be bike racks. So I think that answers your question.
It does.
We're gonna have, will the bike racks actually be there?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
We ran into some funding issues finalized design, so there's provisions for them to go in the future, but there won't be any built right away.
So when the parking lot actually gets put to purposeful use, perhaps there will be bicycle racks there.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Coburn, so the parking lot design takes into consideration the future platform,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
so there will be no changes really, essential changes.
Correct, that's why if you see on the color plan, on the northeast side, we've already set up all of the ADA accessible spaces to where the platform entrance would be.
Okay.
And just to the northeast of those spaces is where a bus pullout would be. So when Nashua Transit is transferring people to and from a future rail station, that's already, the space is already there for them to do that.
And one thing that probably just the only person on the board might be interested in is when I looked at your comments to Engineer Walker's, your responses to Engineer Walker's comments, the one about the detention, what do you call it? The stormwater system that you're providing. And you talk about possible surcharging of the combined system and that getting contaminated. And your response is it can flush itself up with the next rainstorm, or it might require some jetting and so on. I would like you, before this goes into construction, to take another look at that. That could become a problem. I think it would have been a better idea to methodically model the combined systems to see if it will really surcharge, because if it does on a frequent basis, and you couldn't be going out there after every storm to clean that. That's gonna be a meanest nightmare. It might be best not to detain any stormwater and just let it go into the system as is, than to have to,
Right.
to
I
deal
think-
with that.
Yeah, I think to alleviate your concern somewhat, this detention basin does not have a very small outlet pipe. The outlet pipe out of this is 12-inch. So during a, summer thunderstorm, the flow that coming out of that should be sufficient to wash out anything that may or may not have backed up from
From the previous
sanitaries-
storm,
From the previous storm.
which could have been 2 months before.
Yeah.
So,
And we do, we do have some vents with some carbon filters on it, so if something does get stuck in there, it shouldn't become a problem to the site. It's not, I think just to bring the board more up to what Mr. Dukran's talking about, this is somewhat of a unique situation where all of the drainage in the area along the city streets is all connected to the existing sanitary sewer system. So when we first got this project, our intent was to design something where we would not perpetuate that from this site. So we did commission some some boring soil tests, and unfortunately what we found was the groundwater in this area has some contaminants in it. So once we found that out, the option to infiltrate the groundwater here went away. It's not allowed. So we designed a system that connects to the sanitary system. Again, it's not ideal. We tried to set up the details and the system to minimize any potential issues and maintenance concerns the best we could, given the constraints we have. But we can certainly work with city staff during construction to see if there's ways to make it better.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kelly?
can you address the issue of lighting? You think you have adequate lighting down there?
Yes, we have, forget how many, 14 lights proposed, LEDs, in amongst the lot and along the perimeter. I believe the full whole set has our lighting calculations shown on it that show we don't have any spillover onto adjacent onto adjacent parcels, but we are adequately lighting the lot.
Okay. This doesn't look like there's enough.
Mr. Robin, did you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
He said it when I.
Other questions? We're all set for now, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern to this plan? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Carol Rio, and I live at 61 Gillis Street. And it's more concern. It's about number 4 on the recommendations here about the emergency exit on Mill Street. I live right in that S-curve that's in the lower right-hand corner, and it is a treacherous area for cars. How is this plan ensuring that people will not be accessing Gillis Street from that parking lot? I don't see anything in this here that would, talks about the fire department wanting it clear and open, but it doesn't give me any assurance that we won't be bombarded with people coming through there. There's no explanation for that. So I get somebody to clarify that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we can
Thank you.
ask the engineer to clarify that. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern?
Terry Roy, 57 Gillis Street, Nashua. Been there since I was 6 years old. I'm curious about A, Mill Street, what Mrs. Rio just said, and B, as you make the S-curve on Gillis Street, there's another entrance that used to be used for Greg and Sons cabinetry. It goes down a big hill. What's the intent of that? Is that gonna be blocked off so cars don't exit that onto Gillis Street? I don't see anything in that either. And my other question was, where the gentleman said park and ride, every other park and ride in the city, 5 and 8, have buses coming in and out of there. Is that the intent for this as well at some point? I know they talk about the rail coming in, but we're gonna be bringing in city buses, big Boston buses. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern?
Hi, I'm Helen Chain from 4 Mill Street. I just have a concern because at this point with the industrial building as it is, we have people who come in that area and what I call hot rod, drive around and just cause a little havoc. And I see this coming in, cutting off that building, making it even better. You know, the little grass areas are great, but I see it continuing, just making it easier for people to want to come in and just spin their wheels. The other question I have too is, I know right now snow, all excess snow is being stored there. Is that going to continue? I see that that area where the snow is contained, it says loam and grass. It's not. It's, you know, parking lot and snow. And it has everything that the snow, that they pick up with the snow. I mean, it's just trash. So my concern is that. And then, like I said, with the hot wheel, you know, because, I mean, it's just making it easier. So I do, you know, until it's really going to be used, I can see it just being an open area for people to just use it as a little spin. And then, like I said, the snow situation, if they're going to be able to still use that parking lot and still be able to store all that snow in the back, you know, where's that? I mean, that just So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern to this plan? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan?
Mary Beth Restivo, 51 Gillis Street. Although I do have the same concerns that have already been voiced, I'm all for this. And I'm optimistic that rail will come. Not if it comes, but it's when it will come. That's my mindset. It'll be great to walk to the train from my house and take the train to Boston. I think this is going to be great. I do have a question. How long is this whole project going to take from the time they start demolishing the building to the time it's paved? I'm just wondering how much noise is going to happen during the day, how long that's going to last. And also with regard to the lighting, I know it's that LED lighting. We're up above that, so I'm assuming there's not going to be any light pollution coming up. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Mike Swatko. I'm one of the directors of Make It Labs. I just wanted to speak in favor of the project. The city's been very helpful and forthcoming in planning this, addressing our concerns. I did hear the question of bicycle storage, and we raised that question as well, as we have some folks who prefer to bike in. And so if we can arrange bike storage ourselves or in conjunction with the city, we'd be happy to see that. Any forms of alternative transportation, we are in support of that. We have members who have electric vehicles, other forms of transportation. I think this would be a good benefit to the city.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Just give the applicant now, like, to come up and address those issues were raised. So I think we have the entrance and exiting from the site, specifically the Mill Street, and the other entrance, whether they're going to be buses to the site, security of the site, snow storage, construction timeline, and lighting. The issues I had.
Absolutely, thank you. In terms of the access to along Mill Street up to Gill Street, that is being retained for emergency access, and it will be gated. So people, the general public will not be able to use that as a second means of egress out of the site. The only way for a normal person or a normal driver will be in and out at Crown Street here.
That will be the exclusive entrance exit.
That will be the exclusive one, yes. There is another paved road currently, more to the southeast of the site that goes up to Gill Street. We are removing that pavement as part of this project. So that will be removed. In terms of the bus route, we have met with Nashua Transit. They are reviewing their routes to see if it makes sense to add a stop at this location. I don't know that they've committed.
Not at this time. It is certainly something, as soon as there's any need for it there.
You want to get on record?
Sorry. Do you mind just so we can get you for the record?
Sorry, Marshawn again. We have absolutely been in conversation with NTS. They helped us design the site to make sure that it would accommodate the buses safely, and multiple buses when and rail comes, and to make sure that we've talked with Boston Express partners of ours as well. Nobody is planning to run here at the moment. It would take a significant shift in how one of our routes currently runs, so we are not rerouting everything. We do go down Crown Street. We do come close to this as already, and if there is a need that we see, that we can reroute buses to come here. So at this time, we're not, but we are 100% planning to be there in the future.
To address some of the concerns with site security and people driving around where they shouldn't, the interior of this lot will be lit, so that should discourage, hopefully, some of that activity. And then the outer perimeter of the site is going to be curbed, vertical granite 7-inch reveal curb, so deterring people from getting to the rear of the site. The city is not planning on using this location for winter storage anymore because we're removing all the pavement that they use to access the rear portion of the site for snow storage. So now that it will be all loamed and seeded. They have no use for it for winter storage anymore. Construction duration, as I said, we're hoping to get underway here in mid-May. We should be substantially complete by the end of September, and the project should be wrapped up by the end of October of this year. In terms of site lighting, these are full cutoff LEDs, meaning that all of the light goes straight down from the light fixture. None should go up. I think that's all the questions, unless there's any more from the board.
Mr. Pucci?
Yeah. You know, the neighbors concerned that people will race around down there, and that looks like an inviting place to race around if it's empty all the time. Is there anything that can be done to deter that? Maybe, you know, speed bumps or some kind of obstructions that are easy to remove when it's ultimately used for what it's hoped to be used for, but would dissuade people from going there and using it at night like they're doing now. And I'm not saying it's a requirement, I'm just saying
Right.
she brought it up and it makes sense to me if it's something that could be done.
I think that from what I've heard of what goes on there now, the biggest deterrent is the activity at Make It Labs. They're there a lot. Having the site lit behind them now gives them that much more visibility, and when they see things that shouldn't happen, they let people know, and it comes to an end. We could look at speed bumps, things of that nature if the city feels that's necessary. Let the director add to that.
So just to be clear, the area that's currently the building that's black there, going all the way back to touching Gillis Street, that lot is part of this. There's a lot of pavement back there now, which you talked about, right? And there's the other accesses up to Gillis Street. All of that pavement's being removed, and it will be turned into a field. And I think in some of the plans you have in front of you, there's going to be some walking trails in that area, and it's going to be more of a park. We're not promising to mow it perfectly, but to keep it maintained as a grassland area. So I think that currently people drive and do awful things behind that big building because it's dark and nobody sees them when they go back there. And we heard a lot from the neighborhood about complaints of that. And so removing that building and getting rid of all the pavement back there, I think should definitely deter people from doing what they were doing, because they're not going to be able to be tucked way in the back. There's going to be a 7-inch curb, and it's going to be a grassy field. And there might be some, was there any benches? There was something on the plans, I think.
Yeah, we have some rocks planned, in that park area. The director was explaining.
So that will deter people from driving cars in the back. As far as the parking lot goes, I very much agree with Brian that having lights on it and people there, I mean, the Make It Labs is open, I think, till like 11 at night, right? No?
It's self-service, so anytime.
So they're open 24/7, and so there are people there. They have cameras, around their area of the building, and so I do think that their presence is a good deterrent when it's actually lit in a paved area versus a back lot. Nobody's looking at it.
Thank you.
And if I can, I'll just go up on the plan and highlight the area we're talking about, this being converted to grass.
Just bring the microphone with you, just so we get you.
And this wasn't colored green to just give people more context, but the rest of this warehouse building and all of this pavement, so this whole area is going to be converted to grass or field at the completion of the project.
One more thing, Mr. Chair. So there's a pretty extensive traffic report included in the packet. And its conclusion was, my words interpreted would be, no real functional use in the foreseeable future. So we don't expect any traffic impacts, but you said it is recommended prior to either service, meaning Crown Street Park and Ride or passenger rail being added, the operational analysis will be revised. And obviously, we are talking about a new site plan at a point in time. So I don't think it's necessary to put a stipulation for that, but should there be some other use that's allowed by the federal grant, I don't know if we would get to see that here again. We probably would, my guess is. So at this point in time, it's a park and ride. That's not really going to be a park and ride. It might be a bike and ride or something like that. But I just want to be still all to be aware, because you did highlight deficiencies in the sections and so on, severe side distance issue at Crown and Arlington, and we know the operations between Arlington and East Hollis is not that good in the rush hour traffic. So there are problems with traffic. So should there be activity, increased activity here, I think we will have to look at these intersections more closely.
Other questions? Thank you. I know, sir, I believe you had a further question? Sorry, if you could just give us your name again for the record.
Kerry Roy, 57 Gillis Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. The gentleman pointed out the pavement down by where the old, it wasn't the old, it was the second generation mill for Greg and Sons. And he didn't point out where this pavement that comes up to Gillis Street. There's an access road that was used for trailer trucks going in and out of there back in the day. Is that going to be removed as well? And what about the grounds as the property borders Gillis Street, where as you come through the S-curve on Gillis Street, there's all kinds of trees that are overgrown now and all of that. And then in regards to buses, I think Mr. Steve pointed out that if buses go in and out of there, I don't know if any one of you gentlemen have gone down Crown Street or tried to get out of Crown Street onto Arlington Street or even onto East Hollis Street. It's going to be a zoo, especially in the evening when people are trying to go back and forth to get over the Hudson Bridge. It's a traffic jam waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any other of the folks who spoke before who wanted to address anything specifically that the engineer just raised in the rebuttal? You want to just clarify those further points?
I will go up to the plan again. Try to provide a little bit more clarification. So there's currently two paved roads that come from the site up to Gillis Street. There's a short section here that connects to Mill Street. This is the portion that's being maintained as emergency access that will be gated. There's a second paved road right here through the trees. It's hard to see on the aerial. Right there, that is going to be removed. The pavement's going to be removed and loamed and seeded as part of the project.
And just as to his further comment about the buses, I know we just talked a little bit about the traffic report. Engineer Crane raised that. Given that it was based on the facility being a a park and ride. I'm assuming that contemplated bus traffic
Yes.
as part of that.
And the current, what we envision that could happen soon, in the near term, would be that the existing bus that goes down Crown Street would just add this lot on its stop. So there wouldn't be any additional bus traffic in the near term.
Yeah, just one last question. Where's the contaminated area?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Where's the contaminated area on that? Are you capping it with the parking lot?
Yes, we are capping it.
The parking lot,
I'll
the
come up
parking
and
lot
show
is the
you.
cap?
The area we did some soil investigations was in this area here. So right now there's a big concrete slab that exists here, and there's a grassed area. That's where we were proposing to infiltrate. That's where we tested and found some contaminants in the groundwater.
Is that,
So it's being capped by this pavement here and here. This green space was requested by Make It Labs for behind the building.
okay. So as part of your budget, are you trying to remediate that, or is it just capping is going to be the solution?
As part of the project, yes, we're doing some more investigation to see if we can determine where it's coming from and if there's anything we can do to remediate it and clean it up.
Other questions? Thank you. Does staff have anything to add?
Just one possible stipulation to add would be add snow storage to the plan. I'm not sure if it's on there.
Sorry, to add that there would not be snow storage?
No, actually, they will probably need a spot to store snow when they plow the parking lot, so generally, they would need to add snow storage. That would be a possibility. General requirement.
Any other questions of the applicant or anyone else before we close the public hearing? This concludes the hearing on this application. We'll now take our deliberations into the public meeting. The board does reserve the right to recall any party for further clarification. Questions, comments?
No, I don't think so.
I'm with you, Mr. Kelly. I view this as step one.
Remember, believe that rail will be here, and that is phase 2.
Seems like it clears up some existing issues that exist at the site as well.
Yeah, I think it, you know, in terms of, in addition to the lighting, it sounds like the removal of that pavement in the building, which has been vandalized, I mean, that will help clean things up as well. And yes, it will just be a parking lot for now, but it sounds like it's still probably, could be a significant improvement over what's there existing, so.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Mr. Claire?
I'd like to make a motion in new business number 4, site plan owner, City of Nashua, on proposal to demolish existing warehouse and construct a park and ride facility, location 25 Crown Street. And I'd like to make the motion that this plan does meet the requirements outlined in site plan NRO section 190-146D. And that the waiver of, at stipulation 1 for section 190-184D1 be read as is granted and will not be contrary. Stipulations 2 through 7 be as written in the staff report. And an 8th one just be that the area of the local snow storage, the plowing of the site be added to the plan.
Motion by Mr. Leclerc is to approve new business number 4, finding that it does meet the requirements outlined in site plan NRO section 190-146D, with a total of 8 stipulations. The first being waiver request reading is granted, will not be contrary. 2 through 7 is written in the staff report, and 8 as added by Mr. Leclerc. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peterson. Is there any further discussion?
Like we did in the last item, does Mr. Leclerc want to amend stipulation 6 to read?
Oh, yes, thank you. The financial guarantees, to indicate that that's
Yeah, okay.
for work done by a third party.
Okay, so I'd like to make an amendment to my motion for, with respect to stipulation number 6, be that any work within the right-of-way shall require a financial guarantee from the party conducting the work.
Okay, so,
Third party conducting the work.
Mr. Leclerc's motion to approve, with that minor modification to stipulation number 6. Is there a second to that amended motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Kelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Other business, case number 1, review of tentative agenda to determine proposals of regional impact.
Like to make a motion?
Claire?
I'd like to make a motion, having reviewed the tentative agenda, that there are no proposals of regional impact scheduled for the April 13th.
Motion by Mr. Leclerc that having reviewed the tentative agenda, there are no proposals of regional impact. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Rapucci. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Excuse me, who seconded that motion?
Mr. Rapucci.
I did, Mr. Rapucci, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a brief break?
Okay. We'll take a,
2 minutes.
it's a 2-minute break. Adam, who,
Right over here.
who,
Dan.
oh, Scott made the motion, Jerry
You
seconded.
can tell.
o'clock. Everyone was shaking.
Because it was so cold.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess you don't fall asleep.
No, we don't. We don't fall
Warm
asleep.
you do.
And it's warmer up in the stage, you have more lights.
And you have all the lights on,
And
Yeah.
fewer lower.
You have a budget problem at City Hall?
Yeah, well, Mondays.
Bring a
We're the
sweatshirt.
only act in town tonight, so.
Actually, it was fire trucks going left and right. At 5 o'clock, they were just.
You all set? Okay, other business case number 2. You're on, Mr. Kelly. Amendment to the fiscal year 2018 capital improvement program, adding 2 new projects. And I know you gave us the highlights before.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, there were a couple of concerns when we had our meeting, and I highlighted the fact that we need to have signs that get people out of town. And so that's why we wrote a letter that says it's an estimate because they didn't accommodate for that. They're gonna go back and they're gonna do it again. That shouldn't slow down or affect the approval process. It's something that needs to be done, and we ranked it as an A category, short-term. Spitbrook Road widening is a different issue. That's, the solution that's being proposed is an interim solution, and it's, by one estimate, 10 years away from having a real solution, which is really accessing exit 2. But the problem exists today, and this is a good solution for the problem that exists right now. I don't know if any of you ever go down by Spitbrook Road. It's a mess. And this is a good, cost-effective solution to get that problem terminated. So that's why we voted that as an A project too, short term. Other than that, I would encourage all directors and business people to comply with our request to have all these projects at one time and not piecemeal this thing through the course of a year. So I encourage you to say yes, and we'll have the final draft prepared by the next meeting.
Okay, question?
Yep.
Totally agree with that going on to Spitbrook Road from exit 2. That's a nightmare. Would that be part of the capital improvements that Flattery said that they were going to improve?
Flatly?
Flatly.
Well, they're in negotiations on that, and penny wise and pound foolish. I think, in my opinion, the big bucks are gonna be when you have a final solution, which is to blast rock and get onto exit 2. And so, keep your powder dry for this one, shoot your wad for the big one, and have some kind of a joint venture. So, my recommendation is, this is a city option, and it should be exercised.
What's the area that's getting widened from where to where?
I think it's from the off-ramp
Yep,
going west,
right, up to
along
Tower
their
Common.
frontage, probably a little past Terra Boulevard intersection.
It's a little bit beyond there where it comes together by the new commons.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I believe,
And it's the westbound side that's getting,
I'm not sure, I think they'll have to look at what makes most sense. Because there's some issues in front of the commons,
right,
there's a transition that's really abrupt, and it causes some problems. I think in the final design, they should carry it further, make that transition a little bit more comfortable. You
Just
see,
going from 2 to 1, you mean?
yeah,
yeah, it's right in front of the entrance. like-
shouldn't be done right at that entrance, and people still attempt a left out of there. They shouldn't, but they do that, and that even complicates the issue. The only problem I have with the ranking, as you know, the last meeting we had, I was trying to get 2 bridges that are on the red list to be ranked from a B4, moved from a B4 to something that's, you know, deemed very essential. And I heard about, oh, we have this numerical system and you don't want to mess with the process. And then I see two projects, one to aid a developer and the other one is what? Signs, and they are ranked ahead of two bridges that are on the way down that we could lead to closure. I don't get it. I think that criteria need to be revisited. But
Duly noted, Engineer DeCrane.
If I may, Mr. Chair? The plan has been updated, it's in your pack. You know, the staff did really great work in trying to get this out so you could vote on it tonight if you want to. So we can get to the aldermen as part of the budget process, so the addendum is in that, because that process is gonna be underway soon.
So we don't have to vote on the letter, we can just vote on the plan.
Yeah, we'll
Or make a recommendation.
We have Mr. Kelly's letter, will be attached to this addendum and the sheet that you have in your packet. And we'll do a cover memo from the planning board if you approve it tonight, saying that you recommend passage with no amendments or whatever. Unless you want to take it up at your next meeting as well. I mean, just, you might as well.
I'm fine taking it up now. The board's so inclined.
Can we include Steve DeCrane's comments?
Why? We've been through this already.
We're either making a positive recommendation or a
Okay,
negative.
oh, okay.
We're only
Okay.
voting on this. No, it's
Okay.
just-
I think his comments are on the record too, in terms of, having been expressed.
Good.
All right, I'd make a motion. Make a motion on other business, case number 2, amendment to the FY 2018 capital improvement program, adding 2 new projects, as presented in the March 30th, 2017 draft letter from Dan Kelly, and the additional amended FY 2018 capital improvements projects list, and that motion be that we make a positive recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Leclerc to make a positive recommendation on the amended fiscal year 2018 capital improvement program. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Rapucci. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Just because I really don't understand this process all that well, but I would just like to understand exactly what our role in this is. I can't help but be swayed by Mr. DeCrane's point that bridges that the engineer of the city is deeming unsafe have a lower ranking than signs helping people get out of the city. That's the way it sounds to me when that discussion happens. I'm sure that it's much more complex than that, but I would just like to understand that a little bit. Is our vote here kind of a cursory thing, or do we actually stop or alter something if we think it should be different?
Well, first of all, CIC is a recommender.
Right.
We don't vote on a budget.
Okay.
And we vote on the merits of the particular project. Some have economic impact merits, some are safety merits, and the committee then ranks all of these projects according to how they feel of their importance relative to successful operation of the city.
Our
That
rule is
ranking-
we have one member who sits on that committee as our.
Subcommittee of the.
So there's
Committee
another
is formed
vehicle.
by an RSA.
So there's another vehicle if the engineering department of the city believes a bridge is unsafe. There's another vehicle to get that addressed without this.
Oh, yeah. Because we recommend it to be a B4 as opposed to an A something or other.
Gotcha.
Does not impact his ability to get money to fix the bridges. It's just the committee recommends following priorities.
Okay.
Remember, we're a recommender.
And I'm learning this, so.
And then this full board is further making a recommendation. I mean, ultimately, it's to the Board of Aldermen to determine
And there is a Board of Aldermen that sits on this committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they can put up signs to show you how to avoid the bridges.
There you go.
That's gonna be a change order.
That's true. All right.
All right.
Call our vote.
I'm all set.
Thank you. So we have a motion made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Discussion items, ADU law and potential changes. Sarah, you're speaking to this?
Good evening, thank you for having me. I have a very short presentation, which pretty much mirrors your, the memo you got in your packets. So just as a quick background, last year the legislature passed a new law on accessory dwelling units, one of the, I'll say, somewhat rare state zoning mandates that we tend to get in New Hampshire. And it requires that communities look at or modify their accessory dwelling unit ordinances or pass one, or else be subject to a minimum standard at the state law. So Nashua has an existing accessory dwelling unit ordinance on the books, and it doesn't quite comply with the new legislation. And so we are starting the process of introducing legislation to change that law. And before I introduce the legislation, I just wanted to have a short conversation with you to see anything that you have major concerns with or strong feelings about. And we had a discussion with PEDC a couple weeks ago to kind of help formulate this initial legislation going in. And so I'm just going to walk you through a little bit of it and see if we have any strong feelings one way or the other about it. It has been somewhat controversial, I would say, at the state level, and then in a lot of communities. For a lot of small communities, everybody who was just voting in March elections all over the state, there's pretty comprehensive communities adopting new regulations in compliance with the state law. So there's been a lot of changes recently, and we were able to pull from some examples of communities that have to start so much earlier in their process. We're lucky here in Nashua how we can do zoning. So we've been able to pull from Portsmouth and Bedford and Manchester and see what some other communities are doing too. So.
And just before you go through the specifics, I wonder if you can just give us some background in terms of what was the impetus for this at the state level?
So that's a great question. I can say it in somebody else's words. In general, there has been a massive ask on every level for affordable housing that allows people to age in place, but also housing that allows people to keep their millennial kids at home, but not in their house. And so there's everything from home builders, developers, housing affordability advocates, planners, all kinds of different groups got together and pushed for this legislation to go through. And so there's OEP, the Office of Energy and Planning, put out kind of a pamphlet on this, which I'd be happy to share with you if you need it. It's 6 pages, so most people don't read 6 pages. But basically the background of it is allowing people to age in place, allowing people to take care of elder parents in their homes, being close but not having to share a space, and just providing some very interesting affordable housing options. I think when this was being debated at the legislative level, they didn't have communities like Nashua in mind. They didn't. I mean, we have more housing options in Nashua than anyone but Manchester in the state. We have tons of a variety of housing, of sizes, of types, and of price points. Whereas in many of our abutting communities to the east and west of us and the north of us, they don't allow for multifamily. They don't have, maybe the sewer systems and the water systems that allow for the increased density that we have. But they've also kind of zoned out a lot of affordable housing. So this was a move to require everybody to be able to provide more housing options. And we just get swept up in it.
And so the city of Nashua didn't necessarily have a strong position one way or the other.
The city of Nashua had 0 position on this, when it was going through. I will say that Manchester was advocating strongly against it, and there's some communities who did, but it is what it is at this point. So we'll start with that anyways. So what's an accessory dwelling unit? An ADU, as I said, I'm sorry, I always talk in planner speak. So basically, it's a residential living unit that's attached or within to an existing house or one that's being built. So it's a separate living unit that's on a single-family residence. By that definition, just to be clear, it is, if you were to look up a house in our assessing records, it wouldn't be a duplex. It actually has its own code. So it's a single family with a unit, not a duplex. So it is, the values are calculated slightly differently in these properties, and how they're constructed is slightly different. So just to kind of throw that in there, it's not a duplex. So our existing ordinance, we allow them by special exceptions. They have to be incident and subordinate to the primary use. So the primary structure has to be the biggest use on the property. We have a maximum size of 700 square feet currently, or 30% of the property. You can't alter the overall appearance. You can't make it look like a duplex. The goal is to make it look like it's still part of the neighborhood, like it's part of the fabric of the community. What is one of our things that's really not allowed is we require them now only to be allowed for blood relatives or familial relationships. We require a deed restriction be put on the property to make sure that that's carried forward. And that the property shall be owner occupied. So those are just high points of what we have. The state law requires that we allow ADUs in every district that has residential zoning. That you can't say that you have to have twice the land area, that you have to have increased setbacks. You have to hold the property to the same exact standard as you would for any other single-family residence to be built on there. It has to have an interior door between the ADU and the single-family residence. So you have to have a door connecting the two. So they can't have, they can't not be connected if it's an attached unit. There's got to be water and sewer supply. That's not really as much of an issue for Nashua since we have fabulous infrastructure. But if it's some of our few properties on a septic system, you need to have a septic system approval that shows you can accommodate the increase in bedrooms with your system. You cannot limit it to one bedroom. You cannot require it to be only family relationships. And you can't say the size has to be less than 750 square feet. It's a double negative there. So we can kind of go through that. So we need to make some changes. What you are also allowed to do is you can limit the number of ADUs to one per single family residence, which I think is pretty important. So you can't have multiple ADUs on one property. That you can say that you need adequate parking, that you can talk about neighborhood character in the design, about how you're requiring these things to look and to still fit into the fabric of the neighborhood. And you can require the property owner to live on the property. You can't specify if if they're in the main unit or the accessory unit, but you can say that it has to be owner occupied. So those are some of our options in bringing legislation forward. So we have to update, kind of wondering what standards and details are important. The current process is a special exception. Does that still make sense? You know, from a staffing perspective, we think it does, but is that something still requiring somebody to go through the special exception process? Some of the discussion at the Planning and Economic Development Committee was, if you have to allow them by state law, why make them come to any kind of public process? Let them do it. And so is that something that you guys think is valid too? Or any other questions or concerns about the law? That's the entirety of my PowerPoint. It's nice and brief.
I guess my comments are, you know, I do like the adequate parking requirement. I think that can be a problem if you, you know, if you try to do an ADU with a one-car driveway, you end up with them on the lawn and in front of the, you know, front of the houses and stuff like that. I don't know that I'm married to the special exception, except that, you know, that might require it to come through at least for some of these things to be reviewed. You know, it's kind of unfortunate when they construct an ADU and they don't follow the guidelines, and then they get sort of cited and have to go reconstruct.
No,
So-
when they won't have to get a building permit?
They'd still need the building permit, they'd still need the overall approval, we'd still check to make sure, it's in setbacks and it's not doing
Yeah.
anything like that. But what the special exception really allows for is a public discussion and a butter notification of a project, whereas if you just came in and got a building permit and we proved that it met the basics of the ordinance, then there would be no public comment section. And it's also, I think, harder to talk about the neighborhood aesthetic standards, neighborhood character. If sometimes those things are better to a board discussion than a checkbox, but they certainly could be written to be ready for a checkbox too.
But as a procedural matter, if we were to retain the special exception process, there would be no authority to deny the request outright, right? It would be, I mean, I suppose it would be a matter of, requiring consideration of some of these other factors, but, I mean, is there any basis,
If it meets the law to deny it, no.
right, so if the new city ordinance establishes a parking standard of X number of parking spots, if you're gonna have an accessory dwelling unit, I mean, that'd be it, as long as they
Correct.
meet the ordinance. I mean,
They'd need a variance otherwise, right? So if they can't meet the letter of the law, then they'd end up at the zoning board for a variance. And it is, I mean, there is a cost to a special exception process, so I think that's important to know.
Yeah, I would think the special exception process is really not a good thing. That would be my opinion. It burdens the applicant, it costs them money, it ties up the board, it ties up the planning department. I mean, the planning department's in favor of it, so I'm not speaking for them, but
Well, I said
The
staff, I kinda think that
Oh,
meant me.
okay.
I don't know that planning
okay.
department is.
We aren't in favor of it. If you want my
You are.
opinion, I'll give it to you, but.
I mean, the problem with special exceptions is exactly what was just brought up. If you meet the criteria, you can't deny it. So what it ends up becoming, in my experience, is abutters will come and raise issues and complaints and concerns that cannot be addressed. If the board doesn't have the power to make a decision, I don't think it's a good idea to put it before them, because all it does is it raises the specter in people's minds that they have more control over it than they really do. That's my experience with that. There's nothing in a special exception requirement that we're talking about that can't be identified through the building department. You have to have 2 parking spaces, you don't have 2 parking spaces, you need a variance. I mean, that would be my impression of it.
I could agree with that.
And I think there's gonna be a lot of concerns over this, I do. I think you're gonna see a lot of neighborhoods where thinking they're exempt from having multiple units in their residential neighborhoods that are now ending up with what is effectively an apartment. And they're gonna expect the city to address that, and the city doesn't really have the power to.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think that, the special exception, it does create that scenario where people are coming before the board and saying, wait a second, you're telling me you can't do anything about this? What's the purpose of this? Yeah, I mean, I suppose in some, it does give people the opportunity to vent, but it probably leaves people feeling frustrated as well, that, what's the point of this process if you're telling me you can't do anything?
What about owner occupancy? I think that's a good idea.
I mean, is the owner occupancy, that's not a mandate, that's just an option?
Yeah, you can, the option is the city can say, we require these to be owner occupied.
I agree with you. I think
that's an
making it,
important thing.
requiring it to be owner occupied is important.
Would that be something that you would require on the deed, or is it just a rule that would be out there?
It would likely be a deed restriction, but it would also be something that, if it's in the ordinance, and we found out that there were no owner-occupied units, that we could enforce upon through court process.
Question on the size, so it says you can't restrict the size to less than 750, but you can restrict it to 750 then?
Right, I had the same
And
question.
ours is at 700, right?
You're
So
correct.
do we want to I mean, I don't think we want them massive.
No, so I think what we were, so in pulling what some other communities did, so just kind of for example, some of the things we've talked about, Portsmouth did 750 square foot max, but if you have 2 parking spaces, you can go to 1,000 square feet. Hollis has an 800 square foot. Amherst has 1,100 square feet, or a maximum of 45%. And so I think that there's, Bedford has 1,000 square foot max. I think that some of those communities that have the larger sizes also have larger homes as a standard.
Yeah.
So I think saying, you could say something more like,
800.
no more than 40%, or but not less than 750 or something like that. You could say 750, and then if you just said 750 or 800, and somebody really had a reason to have a larger one, they could get the variance for it.
Right.
We do have some, I believe, Carter had pulled some data. I think we have some that have gotten variances to be larger because of where we're being situated. If you think about your average garage, it's what, 24 by 24. So 750 square feet gets you there. If you were putting in something over the top of it or something sticking out from there. So trying to do that reasonably seems like a good.
And I think if you limit the size, you get a little, it does help to get rid of the duplex kind of concept a little bit.
The percentage of living space thing, that gets very cumbersome, because a lot of times when you're doing these things, it's kind of laid out like first floor, second floor. And you'd run into these percentages where you'd say, oh, you really, unless you take like 17 feet from your basement and put it in the living space to the first floor, you don't meet so somebody has to come to get relief over something that common sense would tell anyone, upstairs, downstairs. So I think the percentages thing.
Just the square footage is much simpler.
Square footage is easier.
So the state law says you can't limit it to a blood relative, and that's what the current Nashua ordinance says. But it says you may limit the number of unrelated individuals that may occupy. Is there an additional standard in Nashua beyond limiting it to blood relatives? Is there a number of occupants that we limit it to?
So in our housing code, we do have a number of unrelated occupants that are allowed to be in any one unit already.
Okay.
So we do have that through the housing code, which this would be subject to, because it's not just one unit. It's not just a single-family residence. So the housing code does not apply to single-family residences, but this would apply because it's more than one unit. Good question. I think it's 6, but I can send you that information if you want me to confirm it. I don't want to say that it's definitely 6.
But in that 6 would apply to just the accessory dwelling unit?
Yep. Any one living unit.
Okay.
Question. These are all gonna come before the board, is that correct?
When the actual, no, okay, sorry. They wouldn't come before the board at all.
Okay.
If there's a special exception required, they'd go before the zoning board for the special exception. If there is no special exception process, then it would just go through the building land use permit process.
Okay, we don't have enough people to handle all the influx of these.
I will say, a lot of people have said, oh my God, they're gonna be everywhere. These aren't cheap. You have to meet all current building codes, you have to meet all current land standards. I mean, you're talking $80,000, $100,000 to put a small one on the average house. Maybe you could get away with 50, but I mean, these are not going to be inexpensive units. This is a big commitment, and so while I think we'll see some, absolutely, I don't think we're not gonna permit 20 of these next year. I don't see that being that realistic. So I think keeping in perspective that people are allowed to do it, but you still have to put up the money and do it. It's a big expense, it's a big commitment.
Let me ask a question. How is this different from what we know as the in-law apartment, I think it's called.
Yeah, so the only regulation we have right now is pretty much our in-law, our accessory dwelling unit in-law apartment. So there would be this only.
This only, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Does the, when you mentioned the garage, does it have to be the same structure?
Good question. Okay, so the law does allow for you to allow for detached units. That isn't something that we would like to put forward at this time. If that's something that we decide is a really great idea we want to move forward with in the future, I think we need to step into this slowly and figure out how this affects neighborhoods. I think putting this, allowing for it to be in detached structures has a lot more potential impacts and might need
But we
a
have
lot
the
more.
control over that. We can say it.
We don't
can't
have
be.
to allow them in it,
Right.
in those. So the original proposal is not to say we allow these in detached structures. What we have to do is allow them attached. We don't have to allow them detached.
Gotcha. So if they want to put an apartment over there, a detached garage, they need a variance for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
I guess if you leave this meeting and you're like, oh, what about this? Please call or email me if you have ideas on this. If you're talking to friends or somebody sees this and it's like, what's going on? You know, I'm happy to talk to anybody about this idea, and I'm sure we're going to have quite a few meetings coming up on the legislative side with the Board of Aldermen, PDC. The legislation will come back your way as well. But I just wanted to at least have a conversation before we put something out there, because I do think it's going to be difficult discussion. We generally don't enjoy being told what to do, I think by the state, right? So I'm hearing from you guys that you don't think a special exception is that wise, that it should just be kind of a land use permit process. Is that
At least from this side.
other side?
These folks.
Can I put you on the spot, other side?
I'm with that side.
Good with that side, okay. Yeah? All right, well, if you want to think it over and get back to me, I am definitely looking for more input on that. I think that's a big part of, you know, the first legislation we proposed. And we do need to get something done by, I think June 1st of this year. If not, then the state law just applies. So it is really important to make sure that we move this pretty quickly now.
Is it necessary to address previously approved?
Grandfathering, you talking?
Yeah, I just have a.
Accessory dwelling units,
Accessory
yeah.
dwelling unit,
Um,
because, okay,
No.
go ahead.
Yeah, we don't have to. That's a great question. No, can they come in and, can we remove their deed, if they say we want our deed restriction removed? Absolutely. I think that would be the right thing for the city to do. As far as if they don't meet the exact letter of this, if they want to modify theirs in the future, they'll need to go through the process of anybody who has a non-conforming lot to make it work. So they'll just fall within that standard.
Well, I guess, kind of, but I'm picturing in my head is, somebody got zoning relief to have an accessory dwelling unit in their house. Now this new law comes about that their previous approvals under the previous rules, they don't conform to.
Right.
Do they have to get new approval, or does are they grandfathered from what they've had? Like they have their mother-in-law living there.
Yes, they're
They're not
grandfathered.
looking to change anything.
They're grandfathered.
Okay.
Yes, good question. Yep, they're automatically grandfathered.
Okay.
Yep. And we only have like 6 or 7. We don't have very many. I think the familial relationship was very
Very limiting.
limiting.
Yeah.
It's a big
We
investment.
have more than that, but we don't have them on the books.
Right.
The people who did more just didn't.
You're right. As we find them, we remove them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 concerns. One of them is the policing. How do you know that it's a familiar member? I mean,
You don't, you can't
It's,
require
it's
that.
very difficult now. But if we get complaints from neighbors or butters, then we go have a conversation. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
and the second issue has to do with, do we have enough tools in our inventory to reject anything? Right now, we struggle when people come before us and we in our gut know that this is just not the right thing to do. And we struggle with finding the right tool to say no without having the court case come before us.
I mean, I think in this instance, the things you'd be allowed to say no to would be things that aren't specifically allowed by state law. It's the things outside, right? It's the things that we have a little bit of flexibility with. For example, Bedford says you can't have a second front door, right? Or that the entrance to the accessory dwelling unit needs to be located on one of the sides or rear of the building, so it doesn't look like there's two front doors. So if somebody came in and said, I want two front doors, we could say no. Or they could go get a variance, or attempt to, right? They could go argue why they have special conditions that require them to do that. So we couldn't just say no because abutters don't want it if it met the letter of the law, because that's what the law says.
Right. Okay. So you need our input by when?
June 1.
No.
That's when the law needs to be
That's when the
passed.
law needs to be passed.
Next week or two.
Yeah. Within the next week would be greatly appreciated, because I will be trying to push to the Board of Aldermen, push to work with some of the aldermen to get legislation posted, and the mayor to the Board of Aldermen start the process for the beginning of next month.
Our conversation tonight, does that give you what you need, unless we want to add to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate your conversation tonight. Absolutely. We will start from here in the conversation we had in PEDC, and we'll bring something forward, and it will certainly be referred to you, as you know anyways. But I really appreciate your feedback. So, excellent.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for
coming in
asking
and
for it.
talking to us about it.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Discussion.
Can we take
Good
this
night.
as a homework assignment?
Yes.
Is it something we can
You
view?
will be, yes,
Is it on the
because
website?
it's the hour. It will, right now, the only reason I did this tonight, I was bringing it, and it actually is a lot that was said at 25. It really does impact this. This study has shown cars don't work.
this is-
Parking lots
Yeah.
don't work.
But this is specifically in connection with parking lots for rail service.
Yes, and bus service and what has been important and what has worked in the rest of the United States and internationally.
So this is on the
This will be
NRPC
on the
website?
Nashua Regional Planning Board, Planning Commission site. It's gonna be on theirs. Tomorrow I'm meeting with this. I actually did this video. I took the video.
Can I task you with sending a link around to the board members?
Sure, definitely. And it's Sarah's gonna get it. At first, I had to say tonight that before I did it, it's not an approved video by Nashua Regional Planning Commission. It hasn't been approved by them yet. But they said if you wanted to use it because of this, yes, you had permission to use it. But it will be on, I'll give you the link to the board, and it's a land use thing. It was very, very well done.
Thank you.
But there'll be a test.
All right. I'll be prepared.
Clever test. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kelly.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Mr. Kelly, to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and we are adjourned at 9:14.
They were talking about that before. The thermostat shut off in the evening, so it gets cold.
You know what, I've been coming here for 10 years, and I always bring a sweater, because sometimes you need it in July, and sometimes you need it, you can never tell.
Jerry. I don't usually take a second on it. I know.
back up?
Skiing.